Hello, this week in Political Science Inquiry, POLS 2601, we're talking about the last part of your paper, the abstract. Much like the introduction and conclusion, this is a piece of writing that you should do at the end of your work. Remember that all papers need an abstract. It's part of the APA template, which is attached to the final paper upload link in CourseDen. So what is an abstract? Well, it's a 150 to 250 word paragraph or two that provides your reader with a quick overview of your paper and its organization. It should express your thesis, your key points. It should also suggest any implications and applications of the research that you discuss in your paper. A well-written abstract serves a couple of purposes. First of all, it lets readers get the gist of your paper or very quickly in order to decide whether or not to read the full paper. Or, put in another way, many of you will be presenting undergraduate research, maybe at the Scholars Day presentation that we have at UWG. Maybe you'll be at regional or national presentations of disciplinary research within your major, and you'll apply to present that research using abstracts. So the abstract is a really important way of sharing with a potential reader the value of your research. The abstract also prepares readers for the detailed information that's going to follow. What are the analyses and the arguments you're making in your paper? And later, an abstract helps readers remember the key points from your paper. Also remember that the function of an abstract is to describe, not to evaluate or defend a paper. Abstracts contain most of the following kinds of information in brief form. The body of your paper, of course, is where you're going to really explain and describe your ideas more fully. The role of the abstract is just to summarize all of that in a quick format for potential readers. The proportion of your abstract that you devote to each kind of information and the sequence in which you're going to follow that information will vary. That depends on the nature and the genre of the paper that you're summarizing in your abstract. I'll show you what we do mostly in the social sciences in this video and in the documentation that's attached, the abstract examples page. But in some cases, some of this information is implied rather than stated explicitly. This is a good time, if you have questions, to go back to the publication manual of the American Psychological Association, APA, which is the style that we widely use within the social sciences. There are specific guidelines there for what to include in the abstract for different kinds of papers. As you're going forward in upper division classes, sometimes you'll do empirical studies, sometimes you'll do literature reviews or meta-analyses. There are different styles for theoretical papers, purely methodological papers, and for case studies. So your abstract should begin with a brief but precise statement of the problem or issue, followed by a description of the research methods and design, the major findings, and what conclusions you reach in the paper. Generally speaking, there's 7 types of information that are going to be found in most abstracts. First is the context or background information for your research. This is the general topic under study and the specific topic of your research. So there is a place where that funnel that we talked about not putting in introductions can have a little bit of content in your abstract. Secondly, the central questions or the statement of the problem that your research addresses. Third, what's already known about the question, what previous research has done or shown in summary format. 4 gets us to the bulk of it. This is the main reason, the rationale, the goals for your research. In other words, why was it important for you to address this question? Are you examining a new topic? Then why is that topic worth examining? Or maybe you're filling a gap in previous research. Maybe you're applying new methods to take a fresh look at existing ideas or data. Or maybe there's a dispute between scholars in your field, and what you're proposing is a potential resolution to that dispute within the literature. Fifth, you'll put in your research method or your analytical methods. Sixth, you'll have your main findings, results, or arguments. And then seventh, and finally, the significance or implication of what your finding and arguments are. Your abstract should always be intelligible on its own. The reader shouldn't have to go through and read the whole paper to be able to make sense of the abstract. Abstract should stand alone. And in an abstract, normally you don't cite references. Most of your abstract will describe what you've studied in your paper, and there should be adequate citations within it for what you found and what you argue in the body of the paper. That's where you'll cite the specific literature, not necessarily in your abstract. So the abstract should really read like an overview of a paper, not a proposal for what you intend to study or accomplish. Avoid beginning your sentences with phrases like, this essay will examine, or in this research paper, I will attempt to prove. Let's go to a comparison example, and let's move to the abstract example page in your CourseDen site. You can see now, if you look at the abstract examples file and the heading comparison example, a bad abstract includes words like, this paper will look at the Human Genome Project and its goals. I will prove that scientists have ethical and moral questions about genetic engineering because of this project. This is a bad abstract on a number of levels. It's too short, it's very broad, and it doesn't tell us what the findings are going to be. So look at the good abstract, and you can see it's longer. It's done in just one paragraph, and all 7 of the items that I talked about in that best practices list, they're all there. The intent of the project, where it fits within the literature, what disputes it's discussing, how the paper is going about finding those things, what the main findings are, and the significance. Many papers in the social, natural sciences, and engineering too, follow a structure called IMRAD, I-M-R-A-D. And we capitalize I-M-R-and-D because the A is an and. It's basically an acronym for Introduction, Methods, Results, and Discussion. People use the abstract to decide whether to read the rest of the paper, so IMRAD makes sure that you get all of the content in there properly, and they are in a particular sequence. Now, you may be tempted to write your abstract first. In some ways, this is a rollback to what we were talking about with introductions and conclusions. You may decide that you want to forego my advice and you want to write your introductions first. And that's perfectly fine. That's your choice. I'm going to even more strongly recommend that you wait to write your abstract until the end, because you won't know what your findings are until the end. And your abstract has to have some sort of summary, kind of the punchline of the paper, what you found. So you don't want to write that beforehand, because you don't know what you're going to find until you've finished the bulk of the paper. So because the abstract provides the paper's highlights, draft your abstract after you've written the full draft of your paper. Now, in some ways, this works out very well because a number of you didn't include an abstract in the first draft, and that's quite okay, because now you have the full paper. So I would suggest, for those of you that haven't put your abstract in yet, wait until you finished with all of the edits and work on your paper, and then use that to write your abstract. It's also a perfect time, of course, to go back and revisit your introduction and conclusion. By doing so, you can summarize what you've already written in the paper as you compose the abstract. Makes writing it a lot easier. So an IMRAD abstract is going to be of that same 150 to 250 words. Sometimes they stretch out a bit further. But if you move into the abstract examples document and the IMRAD example, you'll see here that there are 4 basic parts to it: the purpose, the methods, the results, and the implications. The purpose says this paper analyzes how novices and experts can safely adapt and transfer their skills to new technology in the medical domain. I'll let you read the rest of it, how the methods work, what the results are, and the implications. Those are the most important parts of any abstract and things that you should have complete in there. Generally, this is going to be about 25% of the space is going to be on the purpose or the importance of the research. The next 25% is going to be on what you did. That's the methods portion. Then somewhere around 35% of the space will be on what you found, the results. That's going to be the single largest portion of the abstract. And let's remember that. Focus on the results. Summarize the findings. Not what you're going to do, but what you did. And that leaves 15% at the end to talk about the implications of the research. So if we'll move back to the IMRAD problems portion of the abstract examples, I've given you two different examples. One is this: the abstract provides a statement of what the paper will ask or explore rather than what it found. So some people in their abstracts will write what I have on the left-hand row or left-hand column, the X, where it says, this report examines the causes of oversleeping. Well, that's not a good abstract because it doesn't tell us what you found about those causes. A better way to include a statement like this in your abstract is individuals oversleep because they go to bed too late, forget their alarms, and keep their rooms dark. So you want to be specific about what you found. It's vague on the wrong, the X'd example, but the check mark gives you a better clue about how to write an abstract that shows exactly what your findings are, helping summarize things better. The second important point is that the abstract provides general categories rather than specific details in the findings. And the X example, the wrong example, says the study draws conclusions about which variables are most important in choosing a movie theater, but it doesn't tell the reader what those are. So let's move to the checked one, the correct one. It says, the study concludes that the most important variables in choosing a movie theater are comfortable seats and high quality popcorn. That is the kind of material that you need to include. You need to tell the reader what they found. And that's it. Follow the IMRAD model, 150, perhaps closer to 350 words at the max. But don't worry about the maximum as much. An abstract can be 1 to 3 paragraphs. Usually you're going to come in at 1, but you may have, in more detailed papers later on in your academic career, longer 2, maybe 3 paragraph abstracts, but usually 1 or 2 paragraphs. And that's it. It's a short listen for a brief but also vitally important part of your research papers. And as is our practice, we will come back to answer any of your questions that you may have and work on those abstracts for the very last portion of your papers. That's it. We'll see you in class.